We have a lot of stuff to cover today, so I'm not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. We have about 4 or 5 different topics, all related. So I'm going to try to keep this as organized as I can. First topic. This was something that Jennifer Hammonds had noticed. I think she's going to do a video on this as well. She's another channel besides Hypnotech that's also been looking into this. The two images you see at the bottom of your screen right now are actual images from Google Earth Pro. You can go download your own copy of that program, and with the locations I give you, and in the last video you can get them as well, find the two images at the bottom. Now, at the top are the last two kings of the Vikings. The resemblance is striking. Absolutely striking. In the last video, I had made allegation that perhaps the Vikings had made it as far as what we know to be Antarctica, referred to in ancient times, or at least medieval times for sure, as Magellanica, also known as Lemuria. Now, that's just one thing that we're going to cover, and there's some evidence on other maps that I'm going to show you today that backs this up when we look into these other topics. Now, topic number 2, and we're going to get back to this, trust me. Looking into this area of Brazil right here, where we had found this column of lights that in the last video I had alleged I believe are energy signatures from craft that are in this strange column going right toward this area called Polo Norte that we covered, straight through the globe, the other side, the Paracel Islands, where the Chinese are building land like mad, pulling sand up off the seafloor and just creating land at what would of course be perhaps the new South Pole if we were to experience a pole reversal. Now, I had shown in reference to the Hypnotech video that the craft that he was finding correlated in color, at least the energy plumes, to these blue energy signatures. And I want to show a good one for you here. These are all over this column down here. Now, some had asked, well, wait a minute, you also said that there were green plumes as well, and that's absolutely correct. How do you explain that? And there's as many of these green ones as there are blue ones. Well, I just had to do some homework, and believe it or not, in many cultures, and I want to show the wiki for this. Green and blue are referred to with one word. And this is, I know it's kind of a strange thing to wiki the word green. And languages where green and blue are one color. In some languages, including Old Chinese, Thai, Old Japanese, and Vietnamese, the same word can mean either blue or green. Now, this also happens in Celtic languages and in Persian languages. So the only thing that I can derive from this that would make sense would mean that if these are craft, which I truly believe they are, the difference in the color just might be a different energy state. And if ancient people saw these craft coming down and, ascribed their godhood to these colors, that's why we would see royal blue and quote-unquote royal green venerated like we do. The very first colors that we saw assigned to people in a society, a strata of society, were blue and green. Red being the next one, of course, to either royalty or the church. Green was merchants, and historically, blue was seen as royalty or the gods, going all the way back to King Tut. So I just wanted to cover that and knock that out of the way. Now, also, very strangely, this is another piece of evidence for that. On the right is once again a location we found in Antarctica that you can find for yourself. The picture is not enhanced in any way. Now, the bird on the left is what they call a royal parrotfinch. I truly believe when we look at these maps and we see the term regio, it's not referring to the word region. It means royal. And that goes right along with the royal blue that we have been finding, not only now in Antarctica, but in Brazil. The color of this bird would have been seen as royalty. And, one second, I just have a lot going on here. Here's the wiki on the royal parrotfinch. Now, the royal parrotfinch is endemic to Vanuatu and Espiritu Santo, two locations where we have found very clear Pentagon Stargate structures that could have brought that bird to an area that at one time was very temperate. Down here where it says Psittacorum regio, we see this all over old maps of what they call Magellanica Sive, that I refer to it as, or Magellanica, however you want to talk about it. I don't think ancient mariners would have really mistaken penguins for parrots. Parrots, number one, fly. Number two, bright colors other than African grays. They wouldn't have looked at a distance and seen these things that look like basically feathered seals and written Psittacorium regio. I really honestly think they were seeing these royal parrotfinches. Because in a lot of these maps, it shows a green area that has people with their shirts off. And here it also says Patagonia regio. People have said that means the region of Patagonia. I don't think it means that. I think it means royal. Same thing with Gigantes regio. Because there's images that you can find, and we'll get to this one in a minute, all over here, and I'm going to have to zoom this one in, that show giants wearing crowns. And this is a really super detailed high-res map. So we're going to have to scroll down here and zoom in. Now, right here in this hammock, you can see this, one of these giants wearing a crown. Now, this map also, if I can zoom back out, confirms a couple of other things that we've talked about. Up here, where it shows North America, it calls it Costa de la Florida. I had mentioned this before. Florida, what we know as La Florida, was everything from Nova Scotia, or the Labrador, all the way down the East Coast, the entire Gulf of Mexico, and all of its land. This was all referred to as Florida at the time, because it was a French and or Spanish colony, depending on how you looked at it. Now, once again, this is another image from that era talking about unknown lands. Now, up here in the upper left, once again, we see a giant wearing a crown. And this is a new image, but I found it in another location, and it's very strange. It shows one of these giants putting a sword down his throat. Or not a sword, an arrow. It also shows a bird big enough to carry away a small elephant. I've mentioned before that these maps, these images acted like intelligence reports of the day. Now, here is another image, but once again, kind of strangely, we see a star fort. This is, of course, what they call Fretum Magellanicum, This is the pass, or Drake's Passage. But once again, I have no idea what that would even mean. Different map, different era, different map maker. But we see giants with headdresses that to Native Americans would be royalty. Now, remember I had mentioned the Vikings, and I said we would get back to it? Look at how this giant is depicted. This isn't native. This looks just like Slavic or Scandinavian or Icelandic. How would they have gotten there? And this map is 1582. Okay, once again, the only reason I brought up this map is that it shows this Magellanica. Absolutely no gap here whatsoever. And that's another topic we're going to bring up. I found a map that shows evidence of the tsunami that I had alleged opened up that gap that now exists that wasn't there before 1700. And let me see if I can show what I'm talking about here. This area right here. Now let me click that off so that the screen looks a little better. There we go. Now, the region I'm talking about, this is the original pass right here, where Magellan came in through here, then made this hard left-hand turn back northeast, and then came out here. This was the original Drake's Passage. Now, as you can see, there's no other way out unless you go down here. But I want you to look at this feature right here. See this valley? Hang on to that image for just a minute, and I'll show you a new map that we haven't seen before. Now this is Mercator. Here it is. Now this is from 1753. This would have only been, 50 years later. This is that same pass. Here's that hard left-hand turn. But right here, it says, On croit ici un canal. That means in French, they believe there is a passage to the sea here. A waterway. That doesn't exist today. But it might have existed then. 50 years after that tsunami blasted through here, there might still have been water, a waterway carved open that hadn't drained yet. So, like I said, just a theory, but once again, light-skinned Patagonian giants that look very European. And something else in another map I wanted to show was right here. Now this guy right here, let me zoom in. This guy has horns. See, none of these other people do. And none of this group of people that the Europeans are encountering, these guys are pretty buffed out and well fed and strong, at least in the imagery. It seems like that would be counterintuitive to natives that were, living off the land in southern South America if it were this freezing, icy cold Patagonian icefield place. Doesn't that seem strange? And why horns? His countenance looks very different too. But one other thing I wanted to show. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, also right here in this one, let's see if I can zoom in on this map. Some of these maps are super high res and they've been taking forever to load. This is an image from the same place, and it shows a female with horns. Now, I know that they took great license at times with different images, and it was as much artistic as it was informative, but when you see it in multiple places, it kind of makes you wonder. So, anyway, I'll give you the locations for where you can find this bird and where you can find the image of those Vikings. But it was a very different place. That's all I can say. Is that, and it still might very well be, a different place. And what we know of history may not be anything remotely like what it was. And its importance in the development of our history might be something that's being left out. And I guess I'll just leave that there. Like, share, subscribe.